If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I've covered Snapchat recently with all the things that they're pushing out there. They're even revealing the secret societies. Snapchat is brainwashing people with cannibalism, talking about how cannibalism is natural and normal and not to be afraid of it, that it's something that people used to do regularly, and it was a good medicine for people and a cure for diseases and a healthy way to live, which is unbelievable because we know that they're pushing cannibalism in the mainstream. They also are pushing the Illuminati and Bohemian Grove and the Bilderberg meetings, these groups and these secret meetings that used to be secret, which now a lot of people are obviously aware of. If you're somebody who's at least somewhat awake, you know about Bohemian Grove and the Bilderberg group. But when you have Snapchat actually promoting it and talking about it and then deflecting the severity off of it, you know that they're going to keep revealing themselves like this and use humor to deflect the severity of it. Not talk about the satanic rituals, the human sacrifice and all that stuff because they make it make-believe. But now we have Snapchat again. It's almost like 1 week at a time they're deliberately putting these articles out. But we have Snapchat coming out with an article. This is how cults brainwash people. And you can see a baby with an all-seeing eye on his forehead. So sick humor right off the bat, showing young babies, topless babies. Okay, because we all know that these secret societies and these cults worship Satan, and they use these children as sacrifice victims. This goes back to Baal worship to Satan. They are offerings to Satan, as well as the pedophilia and molestation that's involved in these rituals that Aleister Crowley taught about. Now look at this here. An ex-cult member explains how anyone can be brainwashed. For a decade, Dr. Stein was a member of a leftist political cult known as the O. Once she escaped, Stein became one of the leading academic experts in her field. What she has discovered is shocking. Obviously, this is a plant here. This woman is not someone who really escaped. Okay, she's one of them, and she's going to lead people's attention away from the severity of occults. And actually, as you read on, it almost is like linking it to Donald Trump and people who support Trump and being an occult. This is all to bring this stuff into the mainstream and not talk about what's really going on behind the scenes. You can even see behind these hands, which have the all-seeing eye in the palms, the little boy lover symbol, which we've all talked about on this channel. Many have exposed the little boy symbol, the hypnosis symbol. It is a secret code. In the pedophilia rings, these people all operate that way. I know people see it and they go, well, it means hypnotism, yes. But it also has a dual meaning for them, as most of these symbols do, because they can get away with it, because they have indoctrinated people, these symbols, to think it means one thing when they're speaking in code secretly, and it has a different meaning to them. So it says, from activist to captive. When she was 18, Stein moved to America in search of adventures and grassroots activism. Then the Reagan era came. Her comrades disbanded, leaving her alone with her political passions. She'd just broken up with a boyfriend when they lured her in with the promise of working towards a left-wing revolution. This is all, propaganda. This is the left and the right paradigm. This is a false paradigm. This is a false illusion of a republic, which we do not have. And they're going to use her to say, oh, I was brought into this brainwashing of, the left and the right. Okay? MK Ultra is real. The CIA has operated MK Ultra, performed MK Ultra for a long time. You're not going to hear these people come out and talk about that. She goes on saying arranged marriages and breeding babies. Ultimately, the cult took over her life. The group isolated her from friends and family, placing her in an approved marriage and telling her to have children as part of her mission while she lived in a weird, dark, secret little cult house, working feverishly for the cause. So see how they take little truths here? Because these people in the cults, they do get impregnated. They do have arranged marriages because they have to interbreed. Okay, these Zionist Jews will not interbreed with Christians. They have to interbreed with their own bloodlines. That's how they contain and keep power. Okay, they into incest and essentially breeding with one another. So when she's talking about having children, how they're, she's breeding with, going through an arranged marriage and having babies, what are they leaving out? Well, they're leaving out how that's a deliberate tactic of the occult and how these Zionists operate. And they're leaving out how these children are usually sacrificed in these covens. Because women would be put in arranged marriages, and certain ones of their children that were born, whether it's their firstborn normally, would have to be sacrificed into the occult. It would be a ritual offering. So while she's revealing some of this, you see how they take truth and they lead you in a different direction? That's what I always warn about, because people can't see truthers out there for what they really are, because they give tastes of the truth, but then they don't go into this in deep detail. And that is a huge, huge problem, because if people did go into deep detail, they know what's going on. So she talks about her escape and her freedom. It wasn't until 1991, after one failed escape attempt, that she finally got herself away from the occult and started to wonder what the hell had happened to her. That's what the article says, quote. It led to a lifelong research mission to understand what had happened and what continues to happen to people around the world today, right? Of course, I could tell you what happened, but she's not going to get into it. But it's funny here. I have a 5-point definition of a cult. That's what she says. She has a 5-point definition. You see how they're even telling you in plain sight? We know the pentagram is 5 points. Okay, that's where they operate and perform these black magic rituals inside of the 5-pointed star. So Dr. Stein tells me, 1, the leader is charismatic and usually has authority. 2, the structure of the group isolates people. The third thing is total ideology, like you only need me and no other belief system has any relevance whatsoever. The fourth thing is the process of brainwashing. And then she says the 5th point, she says, is the result, creating deployable followers who will do what you say regardless of their own self-survival interests. And again, that is her 5-point definition. Wink, wink. That's why you get people who will blow themselves up, she concludes. People don't understand this, but anyone in a cult is not really able to think or to feel. You see how they leave out Satanism here? Okay, and then they're linking this to ISIS almost. Oh, they'll fly planes into buildings. And then you'll see it as this thing goes on. She'll link it to Donald Trump and the followers. It's all mind control, okay? So she's not talking about MK Ultra. She's not talking about Project Monarch. She's not talking about any of this stuff that really exists that the CIA is behind. And she sure as heck is not talking about Satanism when she mentions the occult. They leave that out, right? And they leave Zionism out. So they leave all of these important things out, but they give you a little taste where people go, oh, wow, there really are people who get brainwashed, and there really are people who go into cults, but this sounds like a leftist cult. Obviously, if you read this, it makes absolutely no sense if you know anything about Satanism and the occult. This is just a mockery, but it's giving people a little taste of truth. So if stuff like this comes out into the open, they can use stories like this and say, yeah. There's some people who've been victims of cults. No, not like these satanic cults, and that's how people fall for this stuff. She says it's like being absorbed into a group of false, sometimes cruel friends. Cults have the illusion of solidarity, but Stein describes them as a perverse group of deeply lonely individuals who have lost the will and the capacity to make decisions on their own. You can't confide in anyone in the occult. She says, if you say there seems to be a problem here, you will be likely to be punished. So there's nowhere to go. You're scared, but you've got nobody else left in your life. So you cling to the very people who are causing you that fear. That's how cults operate, on a cycle of fear and attachment. It's Stockholm Syndrome, only more insidious and confusing because you feel like you made the choice to join when you started out. A lot of these people do make the choice. Of course, people are born into these covens and these secret societies via bloodline. Obviously, she's not referencing that, and she's not talking about trauma-based mind control. She's just talking about manipulation and control. So she's talking about having a leader. You know how they played Jim Jones as if he was Jim Jones was just doing mind control in Jonestown. Everybody was so caught up in him. That was an MK Ultra CIA operation. So people were falling under the delusion because they were under trauma-based mind control. So that's, of course, something that she'll leave out because she's not really a doctor. She's paid to put this disinformation out, and that's why they're pushing it through Snapchat. She says, the article says, alarmingly, Stein believes that everyone is susceptible to cult tactics. These groups know how to use your strength of character against you, she says. It's a very natural human response to say, that couldn't happen to me. The number of people who've kindly listened to my story over the years and then politely turned to me and said, how awful this has been to happen to you. I'm so sorry. It would never happen to me because I'm too independent. More or less, everybody says that. Well, that in a sense is true because I talk about that all the time about mind control. When you try to wake people up, they put up a defensive wall. That's because they're so prideful, because they've been conditioned and they've had this repetitively beaten into their head, these lies after lies. So it's hard to break their programming. They're prideful. That's why they have all these social media platforms so people can boast about themselves. That's part of how this mind control is actually working and how they've deceived so many people to go along with this. She says, I've learned not to get angry about it, she adds. It's a natural thing to want to distance yourself from something frightening and awful, but we need only to go back to Hitler's Germany to see that it can happen to anybody. Anyone can become disassociated to the point where they are not seeing what is happening in front of their eyes. Shockingly, Stein, who attended the Downing Street demonstrations against Donald Trump earlier this year, also believes that going on her own criteria, the U.S. president has all the makings of a cult leader. And you see, this is where the propaganda comes in. Obviously, we do have people out there who are obsessed with Donald Trump, who, we have truthers out there who are also obsessed, and they refuse to, even think that he could be one of them. But they're taking attention away from really the satanic cults and covens that really are all around us, all around our country. Every state has multiple ones of these. But she's talking about it almost like in a joking manner about, Donald Trump's got a cult-like following. And that's where the disinfo comes in. And for the most part, this entire thing is obviously disinfo. She is right about the prideful thing. But of course, they only give you a little bit of taste of truth, because this woman's not a doctor. She's one of them. And she's likely a Zionist herself. She goes on to say about Trump, is he charismatic? Yes. Is he building a steeply structured hierarchy? It does look like this. She goes on to say the Trump administration is certainly causing fear. And the final one, does he have deployable followers? I think we're going to see it unless we get rid of him quick. So this is more, Trump propaganda, left versus right. And they want people riled up in the left versus the right. That is part of the brainwashing. So she's feeding into the brainwashing, which isn't a surprise because this is in the mainstream. She says, I think we're seeing enough to say Trump is operating like a cult leader. She says before adding tearfully, because she was crying, of course, just more lies. She says, I wish it wasn't so. So they're getting people, and that's what they want. They want people riled up and turning on one another. They want Trump supporters to go, out against these people they've already riled up to be against Trump. This is all part of what they want. This is how divide and conquer works, which I've said so many times. And this is a reason that Snapchat is used to push propaganda, because they know they can reach a large audience here. So people can look at it and they can look, not look at what's really going on and who's really behind the brainwashing. And of course, they don't look at themselves and go, am I under brainwashing or mind control? No, because even the article mocks these people and says they're too prideful to realize it. But this is for the left out there. You see how this is written for the left? So people who are on the left will say all people on the right are under mind control because they love Donald Trump. Meanwhile, mind control is real. That's what the television is used as. It's a propaganda machine. That's what the mainstream media is. That's why the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all these elite families control it and run it and own it. It's a massive mind control operation. That's what everybody is under. And that's what people need to break free from. So when they tell you, they bring up brainwashing, they're bringing it up lightly, and they're making a mockery of what's really going on. They're making a mockery of trauma-based mind control, how they interbreed these bloodlines, these Zionist bloodlines, these satanic bloodlines interbreed with one another. The incest goes on. They breed these kids. They sacrifice these kids. And then there's certain kids that they choose and they raise them to follow in their footsteps to keep the bloodline going. So it hints at all of these actual truths about how covens operate and Satanism operates and the CIA is MK Ultra, but it gives you absolutely zero truth. And it turns it into a left versus right, which is typical of these lying scumbags in the mainstream media. So Dr. Stein, who's likely a Zionist, who pretended to cry at the end of her article, is just pushing the same narrative that we hear all the time now in the mainstream, of this extremist alt-right movement, which they're trying to link people like myself to, which I'm not a part of. Okay, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ only. I could care less about Donald Trump. I care less about any of these guys. My faith is in Christ alone, not in man. And make sure yours is as well. Don't fall into these narratives, because they want people divided through this Trump presidency, through this left versus this right, and that's what it's here for. This is not a republic. This is an illusion of freedom. That's what it is. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.